If you wouldn't mind, either you or Belinda can run through the agenda. I'm working from an iPad, so it's a little difficult to flip screens and whatnot. Even my chat function isn't fully operational today.
Yeah, no worries. So a number of items on the agenda today. I'm not going to spend too long on any one item just because most of them would come to the full board as an informational item at some point as necessary. So I'm not going to spend too much time with the intro. Andrew is recording so that we can continue to kind of post the recorded Zooms on our website for the public. And so I'll kick it over to Belinda, Tom, and Jim.
All righty. The first item up is the change order for the ion destratification fans at the high school. Those destratification fans, there's 32 of them actually, be located in the high ceiling, like on the second floor, down the hallways, in the cafeteria areas, and they would replace 32 normal fans that were in the project. And when I say normal, they did not have ion, so there was nothing in there that would, no germ killing capabilities. These things would reduce labor and material costs for disinfecting, and they meet the mission statement by providing a healthy teaching environment. The change order is in the $26,000 or almost $27,000 range. And approval for this is urgent due to the ordering timeline and the tight project timeline that we have in order to get them here in time for summer installation. It would really be nice if we could get them approved on the May 3rd meeting. If anybody has any questions about them, feel free.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda, and if folks have questions about the item, they can send them to for as a point of contact. Maybe if they send it to Carrie and I, and then I'll make sure that we give them a response.
Sounds good.
Okay, the next item is the dry hydrogen peroxide technology, and we're basically bringing this up and trying to give everybody information about it because it's could be very beneficial to the school district if the board would decide to do something with this, and it also could possibly qualify under ESSER, so that might be a way to pay for it as well. But basically, we had sent out a handout, and there was a link to a YouTube video, but it's a new technology or newer technology that's fights microbes. It's designed to create the best environment for learning. It's already used in healthcare settings and college and university settings. It kills viruses, bacteria, mold, and odors in the air and on surfaces. And it's basically a 24/7 disinfecting type of system. And we would install them in classrooms, offices, nurses' suites, wherever we don't already have like UV or ion disinfecting technology. And there's also potential for large savings in labor and material costs due to the current COVID extra disinfecting procedures. And it meets our mission statement by creating a healthy learning environment. It could also potentially keep students and staff in class due to less illnesses based on studies that have been done. It's easy to install and it's a quiet operation. The current pricing is about $2,650 per unit under CoStars contract, and that's for the Synexus Sphere. But the price may be negotiable. We are aware that Carlisle Area School District is actually installing units beginning next week, we understand. So we definitely can get more information on how they're going through that process. There's tons of information out there, and I do have another link if anybody would want it, I could share it. At the high school, looking at the high school, it would be like a high estimate of, if we put it everywhere, would be like 150 units. So that would be quite a bit of money, a little less than $400,000. But something to get out there.
So given given what the technology does, I would assume that this could fall within within ESSER funding. I think that since this is a brand new topic and hasn't been discussed before, my recommendation would be an informational item on May 3rd. And then so like May 3rd, just provide whatever you can in terms of not just say cost, but like what a timeline would look like for installation. Could that be done without, interrupting instruction? And then the other piece might be for folks that do have these, how long do they last? So like, for instance, if you have, if we do say, multiple buildings and use ESSER funds, which is great, do they last 4 years to where that we're then replacing them without ESSER funds?
Right.
Pretty close down the road. So,
And I don't have the lifetime answer, but that's a question that I know Jim and I have talked about for sure.
Yeah, I think that you can only answer what you can answer at this point, and we can get more information as needed. But my suggestion would be an info item for May 3rd agenda.
Okay.
A lot of
questions.
Yeah, I do, if I may, Tom. So a lot of times when there's consortium pricing, you get a better deal. Has there been an inquiry to, whether it's, I think Capital Area Intermediate Unit would be in where the Carlisle School District is, but of course Lincoln Intermediate, to see if there was any discussion in the works about others who are buying this. It may slow the process down a little bit, but we might get some better prices out of that.
Yeah, that's a good thought. And I know we got an inkling from Carlisle that they didn't necessarily pay the price that's being said, like the price here that I just gave you.
Yeah.
Do the other fans fall under ESSERs also? From item 1?
It's possible. That's a little different because those are definitely part of the project. So I'm sure Belinda would have to look into how we would go about trying to do that with ESSER, but it is environmental. I mean, it would the same definition basically.
Mm-hmm.
We can determine if we wanted to use ESSER for that, as long as it falls within the guidelines. The special new technology that's out there, so we would definitely have to investigate that a little further to make sure that we're staying within the federal guidelines for purchasing, because this is a very structured sole source type of vendor. So we would want to make sure that we have everything in place as we consider this to ensure that we're compliant with all the federal regulations.
With the sole source vendor, what Belinda's referring to, there has to be a letter that's provided by the company to indicate that they are unique in this field, and that they're the only, and this is one of the only options to purchase this item from. Thank you for considering those two things.
All right, I guess the next item up is the wireless door lock system at the high school. This is something that we originally had a vision for when we started the project, and the budget numbers for that project made it look like we were not going to be able to afford it in the money that we had borrowed. So we took it out. But when the bids came back and the bids were way lower than what the project estimate was, we went back to kind of looking at it to see whether it was something that we wanted to look into. So I know that, I don't know if Jeremy is on here, but I know that Jeremy definitely has interest, and his staff has interest in seeing this installed at the high school. The high school door card access have been recommended by state and local police, and the doors can always be opened from inside the classroom, no matter whether they're locked on the outside or not. Card swipe is much quicker and easier than fumbling for a key in an emergency. So if there was some kind of a problem in the hallways, the teacher, any teacher actually could be able to lock the door with just a swipe of the card. The particular system that we're looking at would use our existing access cards, so there would be no confusion about which card opens what door. They would also log the history of door access. Doors could be individually programmed. All the doors could be locked down from a central location, and that could be any location. It would not necessarily have to be in the high school. There's readers on the doors could be disabled from also a central location, so that if we lost a badge or the bad guy got a hold of a card, we could disable all the readers and they would not be able to open any doors. Wireless connectivity requires less installation costs, connects directly to our existing card access system, allowing easy user interface. The also would integrate with our Dezego, which is a Siemens product, a building management system currently in use. And that would require minimal operator training since everybody already knows how to operate that system. It would meet the mission statement by providing a safe learning environment. Could also be possibly covered with ESSER funds. And our current estimated cost on this project would be around $212,000 is a budget number. If there is interest in it, we certainly would try to pare that down some.
I would assume, Linda or Tom, if this would be an item that the board would want to support moving forward, if it didn't fall under ESSER, this is something we could look at capital reserve for.
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
we could
be
plan.
part of the it could actually be part of the project. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. So I would say that that like the previous item, I would make it an informational item for May 3rd.
Okay, will do.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So this is, these cards are something like the badges that teachers wear, and they would be, the teacher badge or the staff badge could be activated in the same way, or is it a separate card so they now have a badge and a card?
All the teachers, everybody currently has a badge and a card. And the card that they currently use for building access would be the same card that they would use for classroom access.
Okay. At my workplace, it's in one card. My badge is my swipe. It's the same thing. Okay. And then so that all of the doors already have this keypad, the wireless keypad already installed, or that's part of this purchase also? What do we?
That would be part of this purchase. The classroom doors are currently key only and do not have readers on them. And that would be, actually, that's what this system would do. It changes that lock from a keyed lock to a card access lock.
Okay. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, this is one of those things that, when we talk about kind of safety and security, and the conversation, unfortunately, over the past, 20 years, seems to, it rears its ugly head every time that there's an incident, nationally. And I think that, with the Florida incident, we did quite a bit here in this district, and the focus was always to focus in on things that were reasonable and sustainable. And so this is the kind of thing that I think is reasonable and sustainable versus, some of the other ideas that people immediately come up with after one of these events occur or whatever. So I think that, if we can figure out a way to do it, and it's it works with our routines, at the high school, and adds that layer of safety and security, it's certainly worth considering.
Certainly, you eliminate keys and duplicates of keys that could be made, and keys getting lost, the traditional kind of key. And one of the features with a wireless system is that you can turn off access to particular doors or areas of the building, because you're now controlling it from one location. Another question related to this. So when we're discussing change orders like number 1 or this item 3, these would increase the overall budget and the amount. I know we have more finance than we needed or approved in the past, but that's why these items are coming to the board, is because we're also could be increasing that high school building project, and some of these go to beyond the high school. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. Now, some of the funding could come from ESSER possibly, so then it wouldn't necessarily be in the bond fund, but I believe that that's the reason we're bringing them up, is because there's interest in doing different things, but we kind of need to get a feel from the board of what they want to do as well.
So it would be important, I'm a chart person, I don't know if others need to see it visually as well, to see what the items are, what the funding stream would be, or possible scenarios with you can clearly see it's ESSERs, that's easy. But if you see that it may be, it's still questionable for ESSER's qualification, and most likely would come from another funding stream like the capital reserve or the building project, is separating that out in some sort of chart, if that's possible.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be possible.
Thank you.
And with the change orders, we try to make it a little bit more reasonable too. And you'll see, like, later on, there's a cost cutoff where I can approve a change order versus the board approving a change order. The last project that I went through personally, you know, we were looking at 40 to 45 change orders per board meeting. So it was nice to be able to kind of set a limit and bring the ones to the board that need to come to the board, and enable me to okay the ones that are $3,000, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And communicating that to the full board would be important also, because there will be more change orders. The project's just getting started, and things happen as you get into the demo and then installation processes.
Thanks.
And just to clarify, like, some of these projects could actually be sort of standalone projects that are in conjunction with the building project. They wouldn't necessarily have to be like a change order.
Correct.
Yeah, this particular project, this classroom door access, can be purchased through CoStars, and it would not make sense to do it as a change order where they get to tack an additional 10% on the top of the cost.
Right. I think what Carrie was just pointing out, using the change order as an example, understanding that not everything we've covered so far are change orders.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is the update on James Geddes parking lot improvement project. And hopefully everybody remembers that's sort of improving the parent loop over here at James Geddes, and then improving the parking lot there, and then adding a parking lot in the bus loop for additional parking for the whole James Geddes and administration building. So that went out, that was a 5-year plan project, and it went out to bid a while ago, and the bids are due on Monday. So 11 vendors, I believe, have got the plans, but the engineer believes we'll probably receive about 5 or 6 bids for that. And so hopefully we'll have enough time to pull that together and get it on as an information item for May 3rd. Hopefully everything comes in reasonable, and it's something that might be, we can consider and do. But I guess I just wanted to update the board on that. And then also, along with that, because of Cumberland Township, there will be an escrow and security agreement that we need to do. And we had to do that when we did other projects as well. You basically put money in an account that's our account, but if for some reason we don't do what we said we were going to do, they can draw the money out, type of thing. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but just a heads up that it wouldn't just be a bid approval. It would also be approval of the security agreement and the escrow agreement.
The parking lot was already outlined and accounted for on the 5-year plan. I think
Yes, the 5-year plan.
Yeah, it's one of the first things that we were talking about whenever I arrived. I remember,
Right. And
as soon as I came in.
We deferred it a year, basically. Last summer, it was supposed to be we were
Right.
going to do it last summer, but because of COVID and all that, we put it off.
Mhm. That made sense.
With the James Getty parking lot improvement project, there was also like a restructuring of the way the parking lot loops work. And maybe also including that information along with the things you just referred to, that it's been in the plan, the capital plan. It was put off for a while. And I was through the loop not long ago, and I saw a huge improvement there in the way that the vehicles were moving through, and it was much more safe. So that may, also be important to include in the information shared with the board.
Well, and the township allowed us actually before last school year to just basically, all we had to do is put a little piece in to make the loop longer.
Mm-hmm.
And allowed us to do that ahead of time, basically, in anticipation that we would do the whole project at some point.
Yeah, so just connecting all those pieces would help the board to see the bigger picture of what this is.
Okay, the next item is in the buildings and grounds budget, there's something called the 190 projects. And those are projects that are usually less than $10,000 that we do. And sometimes we can't get them all done in a year. And then we come to the board towards the end of the year and say, hey, we still want to do these projects, but we're going to ask to move them over into capital project fund so that we don't lose the money. Because once the general fund closes out the fiscal year, you can't use that money anymore. Mm-hmm. There's about 6 projects right now that we have identified that we're probably not going to be able to get done. And but the total amount of that's about $20,800. So sometime here soon, we would probably, once we're sure it's going to be those 6, we would probably come to the board and put an information item and then an approval item eventually to just move those over to capital project fund. And we've done this in the past, and it's sort of an annual review that we do. And sometimes we need to do it and sometimes we don't.
So I would say, given how May 3rd stacking up, maybe this one, if it's not as urgent, could be May 17th. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jim, you're muted.
The next item is basically just an informational item covering, I think it's change order number 1 at the high school. Early on, we identified that chemical storage room between the chemistry labs did not have proper ventilation. And we got some pricing back from the contractors in order to resolve that problem. And designed a system that will actually take the fumes out of that area. And the cost of that change order is $7,082.78. And hopefully that could just be approved by the superintendent.
Yeah, I think I might have already approved it. So
okay. Sounds good.
Just we can I'll tell you what, just send me a note on that, and I'll just include it with my Friday note to the board.
Will do.
Jason, did you want to cover the next item, which is the AV solutions, or do you like me to?
Yeah, I can kick it off, and then if everybody wants to jump in, we certainly COVID and having us meet over at the middle school, generated some conversations with board leadership with regards to wanting to come back to this room at some point in the admin office to have board meetings here, as we've done in the past. And as we looked at that, there are a couple of things that started off as kind of special COVID things that board leadership and in conversation with myself and a couple of other cabinet members, there are some things that we're probably going to continue to do. And one of the things is we'll probably continue to live stream, board meetings even after COVID and after we leave the middle school. Given the board policy on participation, we'll still have call-in available for board members whenever that's needed as part of our practice. And if you've been, it seems like we've been in the middle school forever at this point, but back when we had meetings in here, if you recall, anytime that we were projecting something, there was kind of a screen on one side of the room. And depending upon where you're sitting in the boardroom, or if you're sitting in what was kind of the public gallery, that can be very, very difficult to see. So over the years, board members have asked, like, couldn't there be multiple screens where everything could be projected at the same time? So with all of those variables, there was an interest in kind of upgrading the system for not just board meetings, but a system which would then allow us to do a little bit more with our professional development program in this room as well. So board leadership had tasked Jeff and Andrew to go out and kind of get a quote. I think the quote was somewhere around, to make it kind of state of the art for PD and for board meetings in the future. I believe it was somewhere, Belinda, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like somewhere in the mid 80s, like 87,000 or something to that effect. And that covered various licensing or approvals, communications approvals and those kinds of things. So it could fall under ESSER if we wanted to do that. If you've everybody here has probably attended meetings in this room. We're currently running off of basically an amp with corded mics that feed back. I think it's similar to the stereo I had in high school. So it's time to do something with it. This was just an attempt to go out and get a bid. So I think that the AV piece, it would come to the board as an informational item, and if there was board support to go ahead and do this and make this a kind of a upgraded meeting space for a variety of uses, be information then action, and we would likely use ESSER funds or capital reserve. Did I miss anything, Belinda?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. It is potential to cover underneath CoStars. Informational item first to the board, along with a proposal to recommend for approval. If accepted, then we can proceed with it. But even with CoStars and ESSER 2, we will likely have to need to get some additional quotes. But the vendor that we would like to choose does already automatically enlisted himself underneath CoStars, which is helpful.
So I would say that unless there's a need to, unless 2 weeks is going to change everything, my suggestion would be to make it a May 17th item, again, just to kind of balance out the board agendas with the items that we have on here.
Okay, I think I'm up next for the GWABC dissolution and operation thereof. So it was brought to our attention probably back in December that Mr. Ying, which he has served as pretty much the sole board and operation manager of the Booster Club organization here at Gettysburg for many years. I don't know the exact number of years, but I know it's been many of them. He had come into us and expressed interest that he is finished after this year. His daughter is graduating, and therefore he thinks he has no recent communication from any interest from any other members of the community, parents, and or other constituents that would be interested in keeping this organization alive for us. So there would be a number of items that we would need to be addressing, and so we've enlisted Krista Gardner from SEK now. She's going to assist us with some educational items as well as some communication items We most recently met with her, and we were informed that, for GWABC to take on it would not look like a similar operation. It would be far different, simply because we would need to record it as a special revenue fund. We would need to keep all operations separate from our general fund operations, especially for the team accounts. We would need to, as a board, probably accept any equipment transfers that was once a part of the organization. GWABC would need to entertain contracts with concession vendors and deal with potentially items such as a school store, concession ownership, insurance, awards, banners, letters, flowers, and so forth. It would all have to be addressed. With and the concern, of course, is the GWABC requirements. We need to be cognizant and aware of what management and stewardship is of these funds. And this is would be a definite change from how we are currently operating, especially in terms of how we conduct student fundraisers and team fundraisers. There will be no games of chance licensing occurring, because as a K-12 organization, we're not permitted to have a games of chance license, as well as the potential of the administration thereof. Many a time, some of our coaches, it was easy to check in with the booster organization and see whether or not they could make a purchase, and if it was all compliant and their funds existed within those team sub accounts, they typically made the purchases. It would be more of a checks and balances in place moving forward as we were to take it on. It would not be as something as streamlined of just getting it quickly a verbal approval. It would need to require some additional approvals, management's approval, and the processing thereof. So it appears that it's going to be quite a detailed event, and we're trying to make sure that we address each area, but it will change how we currently operate with the booster organization, because then it would become pretty much GWABC's operation in and itself. But I just wanted to share with the group, this is still in the making. Mr. Yingling's year end on his organizational filings is May 31st. If he were to continue collecting or distributing any funds after May 31st, he would need to file another tax return thereafter. So he is aware of that deadline. And we are also aware of that we need to send some communication out as soon as we're able to compile all the data and make sure that we have our system set up appropriately to take this on.
So Belinda, I'm assuming that because neither one of us were here, obviously, when this was formed, that it was initially formed because as an outside organization, they could do more things than we could as a district. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And so it was always separate from general fund operations, budget, and so forth. And so there was no need or worry at the particular point in time when they were doing fundraisers that GWABC's budget wouldn't necessarily cover one way or another.
Right. And they're absolutely sure nobody wants this?
Absolutely sure. He
Okay.
did not garner any interest whatsoever.
Okay.
He's been asking for years too, because as leading up to this.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
yeah. And the real concern with him, of course, he's been absolutely wonderful in how he's been conducting the books, but he's the sole operator. And typically in an organization, you have the hierarchy as the checks and balances. You have the treasurer, the secretary, vice, and the president. And he's been operating this on his own, and he's been doing it for quite a number of years, and I think he's tired of it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. But I just wanted to give the committee an update that this will, if you of course hear of things in the community too as well, you'll know why this is being brought up.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
This sounds like a good deal of work to be responsible. I'm not just talking about the fiscal tracking of funds, but all that goes into it with approvals and with other things that were being mentioned there. Even if there's a fundraiser, will a Gettysburg administrator have to be present at that fundraiser now if it becomes a Gettysburg organization? I don't know how to, a Gettysburg operation. Is that things been talked about, and how much workload is actually putting on the business office? Is it absorbing it? Could be, have an impact on the work. And, is there any discussion about if somebody else needs to be brought on part-time to do this, or and could some of the revenue that comes out of that cover that? I mean, that does change it, and maybe someone would step up if they knew that there would be more than just what's allowed, like games of chance would no longer be allowed, but that all of the funds would not necessarily be able to go right back to fundraising, that there may be indirect costs or something that's absorbed by Gettysburg operating it.
Well, I think, Carrie, there's going to be multiple people involved, that really to dictate to one individual would still end up being a lot of work that we really is so new. Like, we're just trying to unwrap the whole concept, because there were so many aspects to having this organization run on the side. Not only did he keep track of everything and do everything, he needed to provide information for us in terms of our athletic disclosure requirements. So that whole aspect of making sure there is equalization on teams' parts. One of the things I see as a big issue, and that's to answer your question about administrative, I'm not sure if he was present, if Jeff was present at mostly everything as it was, as being the administrator. Likelihood of probably administrator being in some of these events, that's a likelihood, definitely, because they would end up being public events. But one example I'll give you is, if maybe we had previously the Booster Club may have a golf tournament, and most instances with golf tournaments, they serve alcohol. Well, that if GWABC takes that fundraiser on, there could be no association with any alcohol, because it would be in direct not in compliance with our policies and our procedures. We don't allow in our facilities. So it's just those sort of things that we need to address along the way, because it was nice while you had a booster club. They were raising money, nonprofit, giving the money back for what, the needs. It just takes on a whole new animal, so to speak, to make it GWABC's operation. And we hope to clarify those things in our communication when we get prepared to send it out.
And possibly within 6 weeks when this current term ends for Mr. Yingling.
And fortunately, I know we're going to hear some things. Fortunately, this is not our will in our wheelhouse to say, hey, it's, this is just happening and we need to address it. So, but the last item on the agenda, if there's no other questions about that, just wanted to update the group that the food service department is in need of replacing Lincoln Elementary's dishwasher. It's been nearly there for 30 some years. I believe Sandy had mentioned that it may even came out of the old high school. It no longer is operable. And in addition to no longer being operable, the replacement, we now need to have a ventilation hood system that goes along with this. Right now, the old dishwasher was when you opened it up, or like when you moved to part those dividers, the steam would just roll out and the staff would get a steam bath on a continuous cycle. Now, of course, ventilations and hood systems are needed and are in place, of course, for you to have and are required underneath certain terms and conditions, but it will now vent the system and no longer wonderful steam baths for the staff. But Sandy has received 2 quotes, and their estimates are both using CoStars. One's from a company that we use regularly, which is Singer, and the other one's from Trimark, and they range on an average of about $45,000. We would like to move forward as much as possible with this replacement cost, so we thought we'd probably put this as informational item and for approval underneath CoStars as well, coming up on informational item for May 3rd, and then approval if the board would choose to do so, would be most appreciative on the 2nd meeting in May.
So, Belinda, am I correct, just because I don't know a whole lot about this item, am I correct that it's not operational right now, meaning that there's no automatic operation going on with that
right
now? So this is, I mean, this is one of those where we could purchase this from the 2021 general fund reserve, correct?
Well, of course, her food service is a different separate fund.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so she does have funds set aside for this item. So it's not like it's, you know, something
Okay,
that
so
we need to come up
funding's
with.
funding's already there. This is one of those ones where I put it on May 3rd as an information because of trying to get it done. But if you know, if but like you mentioned, maybe even instead of waiting another meeting, if a board member would make, you know, like a motion, understand the necessity to get this done, if they could make a motion to move it to action that night, that might be helpful.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Carrie, given how we've done it in the past?
I mean, it's one thing to hand wash dishes, it's a whole other thing to use a dishwasher to make sure everything's sanitized and uniformly clean and all of that. So that is a necessity.
So add that to the May 3rd information, and then prior to that board meeting, just send me a note on that, and perhaps a board member could make a motion to move it to action.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. And I think that covers all the items on our agenda for today.
Yeah, the change orders and things will start coming in, you know, pretty quickly. And I'll approve the ones that I can approve based on amount, and then the other ones will come. The other ones will come to the board for approval. I think once we get into a routine, I think that we'll probably list them as routine approvals because they're all part of the project. And then if there are questions the night of the board meeting, then we can do those. If there are others that I'm approving, I can certainly just include it with my notes on Friday.
Sounds good. Sylvan or Amy Beth, do you have anything you want to add?
All right. Thanks everybody for jumping on. I know it was a hefty list of things, but it's that time of year and we have a project going on. So things tend to start coming fast and furious. So appreciate everybody's support. And although it's busy, it's a lot of really, really good busy. There's some great things happening and some great improvements with facilities and possible other things that we discussed today as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.